Listen up.
Welcome to the PowerShell Podcast, the podcast for PowerShell and the PowerShell community. And now, here's your host, Andrew Plaw.
Welcome to another episode of the PowerShell Podcast. I'm joined, long anticipated, much hyped up, Stephen Judd. We've talked about you a little bit in some of the other bar sessions tonight.
I'm hoping it was good.
Yes, it was great things. I heard some great things about your talk. I know you ran into some demo issues, but I had a couple of people say it was in their top 2 favorite talks.
Oh, really?
Of the day, yes.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yes.
That's amazing. Yes, my demos fell apart like a cheap napkin in a bowl of water. I mean,
I heard, and then it worked in the lobby, but that's the demo gods. What can you do?
Oh, yeah, I know. And I honestly don't know what happened, and it bugged me so much that I tried different networks. I tried different machines. I went and snagged Stevie Coaster's laptop. I'm like, hey man, try this. And it didn't work for him. Same error. I was like, well, it's not me. It's not my laptop.
Right?
Yeah. And somehow, I restarted my laptop. I was like, maybe it's just a restart. Maybe it's a local thing. And it comes back up and it's like, welcome to the new version of Windows 11. I was like, sucker updated between Thursday night and my demos. And I don't know when or how, because it never prompted me. And I know it's my mistake somehow because I didn't turn it off.
I don't know.
Doggone, I got burned.
And relatable though.
It happens to the best of us.
It really does.
And it even happened to me, and I'm not the best of us.
I don't know. Some people would argue with that. I think your speaker, did you get that 3D printed? You had a name title.
Oh,
so we all have these amazing 3D printed titles that say speaker.name or user.name, and then your username underneath it with the PowerShell logo, which are awesome. But you had one that was about 20 times larger. How'd you get that done? Did you hit up Kevin or what happened?
No, I did not hit up Kevin. This apparently is the new joke to pull on me is shout out to Matthew Gill for my Gigantor PowerShell with the gold chain.
The bling.
And if you haven't seen the picture of me wearing the crown and all that, well, let me know. I'll send you a copy. Not that I'm proud of it, but my felt painting hasn't come in yet.
Send me a link to the, I think you posted it on Twitter. Send me a link to that and I'll put it in the show notes.
Oh, heck yeah. We might as well throw that in there because why not?
It's a new meme.
Like I'm not silly enough as it is. So anyway, he printed that big old thing and I went down in July and I spoke to the PowerShell Saturday Baton Rouge.
Yes.
And so I submitted a talk and they were like, hey, come talk to us. And it was great. So I went down there and they had these little 2.5-inch, 3-inch printouts of the PowerShell Saturday Baton Rouge logo.
Yeah.
And 3D printing. And so Matthew, again, snagged me with one that's about 8 inches in diameter.
Oh my gosh.
And he's like, I got a special one for you. And I'm like, okay, this is hilarious. So, when people see that kind of stuff, they're like, this is a gag that I would like to be a part of. And so then Kevin prints me a badge that's as big as his format printer would print. And it went from, I'm not lying, it went from armpit to armpit straight across my shirt. Took 3 magnets to hold it up. It's a thing of beauty. I put it out on Twitter. That's the one we should put in the link.
Put the link in the show notes to every single amazing thing.
Stephen being understated.
Yes. What was your talk on today, though? What was the topic?
My talk today was how to safely detonate suspicious content.
What was the gist of it?
The gist of it, well, I actually put it up on GitHub so you can get the full code instead of the gist.
Link in show notes. Okay. I like that.
Also, I did a GitHub gist joke there that I don't want anyone to miss.
Yeah, no, they won't.
Okay.
They got it.
So, Doug got it. So the gist of it is there's some techniques that I used to use when I was a digital security analyst where you want to go check out a URL that someone marked as suspicious.
Yeah.
And you don't know just by looking at a URL what it's going to be. So it's safe to not just go, hey, let me copy paste that into my browser and open it.
Yeah, no, you wouldn't want to do that.
So I showed 3 different techniques, including a virtualized Firefox browser and a Kali Linux OS using WSL. So you don't have to use Kali Linux and WSL, but security professionals like the Kali and the tools that are baked in.
Makes me feel like a hacker every single time I use it, so
yeah.
I can respect that.
Besides which, everybody likes the Kali girls, so I think
Katy Perry has a song about that.
I think there's a Beach Boys song about that too. If you're old school,
yes.
So, excuse me. And then the last one is virtualized OS in Azure. So you can load up a full-blown Windows client in Azure because they maintain the images. They also patch them. So
That's why we pay the providers.
That's right. That is why we pay them.
Yes.
And so I showed techniques of how to use those, how to reset them quickly. And then the key takeaway really is no matter what you do, try to make it fit for purpose. Because each one has strengths and weaknesses, and I covered both the strengths and the weaknesses of each one. Now, if you want to watch this presentation, go to shortcutyour.life, and that takes you to my content page, and the top link there at the moment is that presentation that I gave at PowerShell Summit 2024.
Fantastic content there, man.
And all my demos worked in that one, where they didn't fall apart like they did today.
I was going to say, it's pretty relatable, though. When you go to run something you've seen online or whatever, and you take it in your practical environment, and things break pretty quick,
man.
and you run into red text, it's pretty common out there.
Right.
So I think it's good to have a session that you roll with the punches, you know?
It's one of those things where I remember teaching a PowerShell class that I wrote, and one of my demos didn't work because it wasn't a demo that was part of the material. It was a random question from the audience kind of thing. And the student's like, how would you do this? Or how is this? I'm like, okay, cool. So I opened up the PowerShell console and started typing and read text. I'm like, wait a minute, that should have worked. And so then I troubleshot it live while everyone's watching, figured out what was wrong with it, said, oh, that's what that is. Okay, so, all right, if that's what that is, then this is what you need to do to get around that. And okay, there we go. Sorry for that not working. And one of the students goes, that was amazing. Like, what, that I had an error? He's like, no, we just watched you troubleshoot it live.
Yes.
And we watched your thought process as you worked through this problem, and you got it working. And that was amazing. And that was the takeaway from that. And I'm like, ego kind of plays into things because there's some pride in having your demos go flawlessly and just being, look how polished this guy is.
Yeah.
But then when it just absolutely burns down around you and you go,
when it hits the fan,
let me show you how you react to that, and here's how you troubleshoot this, and here's how you work your way in and out of it. And, people relate to that. They don't relate. Let's see. This is how I say it I said this to my son. I'll say it to the podcast. But if you overcome adversity, that's when people are impressed. If the challenge was hard and it looked insurmountable and you do it, then that's when people get encouraged and get motivated by you living your life.
I think on the other bar sessions, a common thought we've had is talking about the PowerShell journey, your journey, whatever. And if you're facing those hardships and insurmountable odds and things like that, I know it's challenging in the moment, but I tell you what, the story at the end of it's going to be all worth it. It sounds like that's sort of what you went through in a certain, maybe shorter, condensed version of that.
Yeah, I made the comment as I was trying to get my very first demo that fell apart on me working, is that what deodorant I had left went running for the hills. And when we finally got it working, I said, please let me pause for a moment and dry my hands. Because, you get the sweaty hands when things are horrible. I'm like, whoo, okay, let me rub my hands on my shirt here.
Yep.
That's why I always wear black.
Yeah,
I always wear black because it hides as much as possible.
Yep, I made the mistake of shaking someone's hands right after they presented.
Oh,
I was like, okay, yep, I feel you. You were a little under the pressure there. All right, no worries.
That's hilarious. Yeah, that's a real thing.
Yeah, it definitely is.
And someone asked me today, they're like, are you nervous? I'm like, I'm always nervous. I know this presentation. I've given this exact presentation 3 times this week, and it went flawless 2 of the 3 times. That's why today was so shocking.
Right.
And like, what happened? What changed? It was less than 48 hours earlier, and I presented this flawlessly.
Right.
And so then it just, boom, blows up. Like, okay, that's crazy. But someone asked me, like, are you nervous? Like, yeah. But is it nervous energy? Is it nervous good? Do you wind up talking like this? Do you get through the presentation as fast as humanly possible?
Yep.
Or do you like, no, man, I'm good. I'm nervous. I'm going to give you a lot of energy, and it's going to be a really good presentation. And I'm going to throw in some extra dad jokes as a bonus.
I think so. What's up with you and dad jokes? Are they always ready for you? Like mentally, are you always in a dad jokey mood, or are they pre-prepared? Where are you? Because I feel like it's like you just live in dad joke land.
So it's both, right? So part of it is a mindset that I frankly prepped myself to enable. I've been doing puns my entire life. My dad was a massive punner, and he's really good at it.
Very punny guy.
And, yeah, he's a punny guy. My dad, I mean, he's really smart, and so I kind of come by that naturally. And my older brother, who is also very smart, he was long time my hero. And
Older brother, younger brother?
Older brother.
Okay.
He's like a star. Younger brother's also my hero, but for different reasons, different purposes. And so he, where was I? Oh yeah, I was talking about puns. So I come by the puns naturally, but puns don't work very well when you're giving a presentation to a crowd. So if you're going to talk to people, like if I throw them in a conversation like we're having, then it's natural because I can just pun off of what we're talking about.
Yep.
But if you're the one talking and the audience is absorbing, puns just don't land very well.
Yeah.
So I transitioned to dad jokes when I decided to start doing more presentations. So then I need setup punchline. And so I'm constantly listening for punchlines without even thinking about it. Because punchlines is where the joke is. Then I need the setup. So if you think about it, it's a little backwards. But I'll hear a weird word, and it'll be hey, I heard a word. And then the joke just starts to formulate, either then or later. And I never know when it's going to come. Word, and I'll be like, that sounded funny. So I was talking this evening with some of the other attendees. I won't name names in case they don't want to know that I was talking to them. They don't want to be associated with me.
No dad jokes.
And they were talking about Wireshark, and I said, man, when you get into TCP/IP analysis, it can get devilish really fast. With all the sinning.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
I thought of that joke this weekend. The reason I thought of that is because I was thinking about, or the conversation was about packet analysis, and my brain went to the sin, act,
yeah,
right?
Yep.
And then I went, all that sinning, I got the punchline.
You got it.
Now I need the setup and the joke. And that's how I think of those.
Every time I say a dad joke, I just have to say it sometimes. Sometimes I can limit myself, but I'll be in like a work meeting and I'll have to type in the Zoom chat. You know how I get. But I kind of hate myself just a little bit afterwards. Not really, but I'm like, oh gosh, I hate that I just did that. Do you hate it, or you've just fully embraced it?
I've fully embraced it.
Do you like Borat, that type of humor?
No, because Borat preys on people for his kind of humor.
Right.
That's because he's
making a fool of them.
Yeah, he's making a fool of them. In these things, I'm the one telling the joke. It's more on me. I don't like telling jokes about other people.
I agree with that.
That's how I approach it. And so if something is funny, it's funny. And the reaction, and most of my funny is like painful funny. Oh gosh, I can't believe I got tricked into thinking A, and he slammed me with B. Right? Yep. I'm looking for that record scratch moment in people's brains where they're like, wait, what? Oh, man. That's what I'm trying to go for.
Well, I think people are vibing with it, so
yeah.
Keep it up, I guess. It makes me cringe and I also laugh. It's a 2-in-1.
It is an icebreaker, and there are people who will come to see, what dad joke do I have this time? And I pepper them throughout my presentations, and I toss them out in my conversations. But, the goal is to do two things. One, like you said, it's like, was it the favorite presentation? Well, what was it about it? Was it the demos? Well, obviously not, because my demos were trash. Why were they trash? Well, because reasons.
Exactly.
Right? Like the
sun rays hit it right.
Yeah. The RDP to a Azure VM, which it built, didn't work. Why? We did get a net connection on 3389, and it came back with a connection. Like, wait a minute. How can I connect to it using get net connection, but I can't use the RDP client to get to it?
That is weird. I'll give you that.
And it was the same on two different laptops on two different networks. So when you're troubleshooting, you're like, hey, let's be diligent about this, and let's figure out what's in our control and what's not. Well, it's at the end of the day and whatever. But I go back to the hotel. That junk is bugging me. I get on the hotel Wi-Fi. I do the first thing I do is bring up the RDP client. It connects. Machine was on. Machine was built.
Yep.
You just couldn't connect to it. So, what was the problem? I don't know what the problem was, but I got it set right. So when you're troubleshooting, you're like methodically going through the troubleshooting steps in order to get to a solution, or at least identify where the problem is.
And you did it successfully. You rolled with the punches. Great presenter. Great dad joker. But I want to kind of twist the tables today. You attended a bunch of talks today, right?
Yeah, a bunch of talks.
What's your favorite, other than yours, of course, what's your favorite talk that you attended today?
Oh, my favorite talk today.
Gotta pick one. One has to reign supreme in your mind.
I have to pick one. Ooh, that's tough. I would think that at this point, I'm going to put the mic down and walk away, because it's almost like picking your favorite child. Okay, so I think the one that I would go with was Neha's presentation.
I agree with that.
And the reason that impressed me is because she felt so natural and was prepared and professional, and it was her first conference and first talk.
Yep.
And she crushed it.
I had to interview her after that.
Yeah,
one.
okay.
She did super great.
Yeah, she did very well. And, like everything else, there's always room for improvement. And so if I was her coach, I would say, well, here's some things to consider for the next time. I do the exact same thing to myself every time I present. Every time. There's not a single time where I went, well, that's as good as it can get, and walked away.
Nope.
Not one time. And I'm a little odd that way, and I get it, because I'll watch my own YouTube videos when they get released, because I want to know, what is it I can do to be the best? Not just the best presenter, but the best me.
Exactly.
If I have a weird focal tick, I want to get rid of it. If I'm doing something with my hands that's odd, I want to get rid of it. Because I want the people in my audiences to get the maximum value from my presentations. That's what I'm shooting for. I want them to get the most value. I want to be the least distracting, but possibly the best communicator. That's what I'm looking for.
Continuous improvement, continuous integration.
Heck yeah.
But that's the way to do it. I was talking to somebody earlier today who gave a talk, and I won't mention their
Wait
name.
a minute. Would that be CICJUDD?
Oh, I see what you did there. Thank you. I was talking to someone earlier today, and they were kind of beating themselves up afterwards about how, I didn't do that good. I could have done better.
Yeah.
And I say, celebrate the fact that you actually did it, first of all, because most people watching you aren't doing it. They're not putting themselves out there. So congratulate that. And also, maybe you could have done better. Everybody could.
Right.
Take note of what you can do better for next time and keep it up. That's
Absolutely.
all that it's about, is just that continuous improvement.
Yeah.
Continuous deployment.
Right.
We're there.
So why are musicians any good? Musicians are good not because they walked up and played a song for the first time.
Exactly.
They have played that song thousands of times. Not a few times, not 100 times, thousands of times.
Yes.
And they have ground it into their muscle memory, and they can just rip it out because they've put in the time. So if you want to be a good presenter, you better be presenting. If you want to be a good PowerShell person, you better be in the console. If you want to be a good coder, you better be in the code. You want to be a good manager, you better be reading books and talking to people and managing.
You know what? This is more of a parenting vibe thing, but one thing I really hope my kids take away, and a big emphasis point for my wife and I, is practice makes progress. Not perfection. That is not a real thing.
Oh, yeah.
But practice makes progress. I know that's a common phrase, but that's one thing we really have driven home with the kids, and it's been really helpful. My daughter's been into volleyball lately, and
Okay.
she hasn't been a natural, amazing athlete at it, but she's put in a lot of work. She's bought into the process, and she's getting better. Same thing applies to everything in life. I think that the ultimate truths in life apply to many domains. Nothing is that specific to PowerShell or whatever we talk about on this podcast.
I really like that phrase. I think you could apply that to people that are doing like whiskey tasting.
Practice
You
makes
know what's
progress.
coming. Practice makes progress bar.
Yes. Well, thank you, Judd. I think we got to cap it with that, with a dad joke.
That's fair. That would be on message for me.
On bar?
on bar. You did it.
I
wasn't
didn't mean
me.
to. I'm sorry
My
to anyone
aura
out there.
has stretched out onto you on this podcast.
It really has. And my wife likes dad jokes too, so I'm just inundated with it, and they just creep into my mind.
Are you looking for a mentor by any chance?
Oh gosh, I don't know if I want to make that change yet, but as the years go on, I think I'll head that direction.
Well, I'm here for you should you ever decide to.
Well, links to everything we talked about, not everything, but the things that are linkable are in the show notes.
Correct.
And Judd, people are vibing with you. I think you're a loved guest at this point. I think you're the most interviewed at this point in time. Frank is he's creeping up. He's hit 3, I think now.
I'm gonna have to keep my eye on this leaderboard.
You might need to take him out. He's right over there.
No.
But where can people find you on the World Wide Web, and they want to connect with you? They want to support you. They want to follow the journey of Judd and maybe emulate it in their own lives to a certain extent.
So for better or for worse, I'm still mostly on the X platform, but I still call it Twitter because
Twitter, yeah.
Yeah, it's so much easier to say. Everyone knows it that way. So it is the platform it is. That's where I am the most. I'm also on Discord, and that's where I have like more conversation style things. So, and I'm not as much on LinkedIn, but you can connect to me professionally there. And I've decided at some point next year, I'm going to be writing more on my blog.
Okay.
And so I want to start taking these ideas that I have and such and start putting them out in more of a readable and hopefully short form. I tend to get a little verbose. Anyone who's listened to me talk knows that I talk a lot. And so I get excited about it. But I really want some digestible stuff. The way to do that the most for me, though, is I like putting little snippets out on Twitter and get the conversation going. So, I get that some people have problems with the platform. I get it. That's not me. I'm here for the people, and there are people out there looking for help and want to have conversations, and that's what I use it for. So connect with me. I'm at Stephen Judd. I'm Stephen Judd on LinkedIn, and I'm Stephen Judd on GitHub as well. And so I've been putting my content out there as for my presentations and my code, and just hit me up.
Awesome. Well, links will be in the show notes. Thank you, everybody out there, for listening. This will be our last bar session for the night. As of now, we'll see if anyone convinces me. But
yeah, we'll see.
Judd, we ended it with a bang. Great to see you, man. On a personal level, always great to see you.
Always good
to
see
hang
you.
out. I'm so fortunate to call you a friend and get to meet you year over year. And I look forward to Summit and whatever else we have coming up. And I know you've been talking at a bunch of conferences, so make sure to connect with him, check out what he's doing, and see if you can learn a thing or two.
I got one thing to say before we break up. I think you're doing a fabulous job with this podcast. It is so fun to watch you grow on this. And like you said, practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes progress.
Exactly.
And you're progressing very quickly. And it's very impressive to watch. And I'm just so glad to watch your journey.
It's a fun journey. And, I'm on my journey. Those of you out there listening, you're on your journeys. And we're all here together. We're at different stages. Each of us, some are more advanced than me, some are less advanced than me, some are more advanced than you, less advanced than you. But we're all in it together. And it's this fantastic community vibe. And I think that's a fantastic way to end it. So thank you all out there for listening. And we appreciate you out there in the community. It's the best community in the world. PowerShell is fantastic.
Agreed.
I think this bar session kind of sums it up perfectly.
PowerShell's done a lot for my career and my life and my friendships. And so, please don't think that it's not available to you. It is. Join us, please.
Yes, and you don't have to be a genius. There's no such, I am not a genius. I struggled a lot on this journey.
Yep.
And you can be there right with us. So.
Yep. We look forward to seeing you and meeting you.
That's right. Take care, everybody.
Welcome to another episode of the PowerShell Podcast. I'm at PowerShell Saturday NC. It's Sunday now for the bonus sessions, and I missed him last night, but I wanted to get Kevin Laux on the podcast. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And I said your last name right because I've been saying it wrong for a long time.
Everybody said it wrong my whole entire life.
But, we're perfect straight out the gate. So I've seen you in the community for quite a long time. And I think recently, was it this year that you gave a talk at PowerShell Summit?
Yeah, I gave a talk on building GUIs in PowerShell.
Nice. What methodology did you sort of end up using?
For building GUIs myself, or just for that talk?
For that talk.
Yeah, so for that talk, I kind of went through like all the different ways to build a GUI. And then I've actually got really good feedback on it, but I kind of got to a point with it where it's like, should you even build a GUI? right? GUIs add a lot of overhead to what you're building, and you have to think about the person who's using it, and how they're going to use it, and you got to troubleshoot for them, because it's not just something that you have in your back pocket you're just pulling out to use once in a while.
Right.
You're building a GUI because you want other people to use it, and so that's kind of the way that goes.
Yeah, GUIs are fun. I feel like if you're on the PowerShell bandwagon and going through your learning journey, everybody eventually has a little stint where they learn all these lessons. So sounds like a helpful talk to check out. But you said there might be a difference between what you covered in the talk and what you use personally. Did you end up, what solution do you use personally now?
Well, personally now I don't use a whole lot of solutions. So that's one of the things that's kind of weird is I've been in the PowerShell community with the Research Triangle PowerShell user group for a while now. Phil and I have run this group, or I've at least helped with the group for probably 8 years going now. And I participated too. We actually met at a different location here, and some other people ran the group. And so I probably have gone to this group for like 10 years now. So back then I was building some GUIs more. I was using Sapien PowerShell Studio.
Yeah. I remember I had that. That was pretty sweet.
And when I was in college, I did some Visual Studio. And it's like, if you use Visual Studio for anything and you go into Sapien, it's the same thing. Like it's really, really easy to switch from one to the other. So for me, that was a great solution. But there's a licensing cost to it and stuff like that. So anytime I'm going to give a talk or something, I'm not going to tell people, especially at Summit, I don't want it to be like, hey, here's a sponsor for Sapien. That is a great tool, but there's other ways you can do GUIs too. You don't have to go splurge on something like that.
Yeah. When it comes to the should I GUI or should I not, sort of where I ended up with it whenever I was dabbling was you can do a GUI, but you should really have a module that drives whatever program you're making so that it is adaptable and it doesn't, whatever you're trying to accomplish doesn't have to be done just in the GUI. There's some opportunities to take it out if you need it. But PowerShell Studio was such a fun IDE. I remember whenever I got a license for it, I convinced my boss. Oh gosh, those were the heydays. I think that was pre-VS Code, or at least pre-VS Code being well adopted at all.
Oh yeah, I don't think VS Code was around. Well, at least when I was using Sapien, it was not around at all.
Yeah. So what's your day job? You mentioned being in PowerShell for a very long time. How'd you kind of get introduced?
Well, I consider myself kind of like a jack of all trades.
Nice.
And so, and definitely a master of none, right? I see a lot of other people, some of the stuff they're doing, I'm like, I could not do that, but I've done enough in a lot of different areas. So, I started, like my professional IT career doing like end user computing, doing Windows deployments, doing patching of Office, Internet Explorer, stuff like that. I moved into the space where I was doing Citrix desktops. I moved to .NET, doing shared platforms for applications. And then right now I'm in a space where I'm doing, well, I did containers as well for a little bit. Then I moved into automation. So, and I did automation all along, right? Like,
yeah,
basically, if you're in IT and you're doing it at big enough scale, you have to consider automation and everything. But what I do right now is Maestro scheduling, and I do orchestration of automation, like ServiceNow tickets coming in, and then taking those tickets and adding disk space or something like that. So I have a platform called OneDesk that I work on that does that, and then Maestro for scheduling batch jobs and stuff.
Nice. And PowerShell's sort of been part of that journey the whole time.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, we do almost no PowerShell in that, right? Because for Maestro, we're supporting the application developers that are wanting to run batch jobs, and so it's IBM, right? There's
Gotcha.
no PowerShell there, and OneDesk is very much Java based.
Okay.
And I've kind of moved more into like a management role, so I'm more managing those platforms than actually developing the code for them.
Nice. Yeah, it's always fun how the careers can take twists and turns. But for me, yeah, I don't write quite as much PowerShell as I used to, especially in my sort of implementing a whole bunch of stuff at a previous employer where there weren't that many IT people. But a lot of the things I learned in the way that I conceptualize solving problems is heavily influenced by a lot of the things I learned in the PowerShell world. And I assume something similar is true for you. But I want to talk about PowerShell Saturday a little bit because this is a fantastic event. Every single person I've talked to has been loving it. A lot of work goes into something like this, though. So want to shout out to you, Mike, Phil, for putting this on. I just love these community-oriented events where you get to talk to almost everybody by the end of it. Anyone, it's very friendly, very open, fantastic sessions. How you feeling now that we're on the last day? Things are going to get wrapped up. I know you've been pretty hands-on during the conference, making sure everything runs smoothly. You feeling good?
I'm feeling great about it. I mean, I feel like I've been like, I don't know, a gopher, right? I think that's what they call it. Like, go get this, go get that.
Yeah.
I had to run around and pick up some catering stuff the other day. We had some badges that didn't get printed that I had to go run and
we got to talk about the
printed.
badges.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, it's been a little bit hectic, but it's been great because at least the general feeling I have is that PowerShell, like I see PowerShell everywhere, but especially with the user groups and things like that, the attendance, especially in person, just seems so difficult to come by. And so planning an event like this, we're like, are we going to get enough people? Are we getting enough people? And I think Mike had said at one point, he put up a picture of the glasses when we got the glasses in, and within 24 hours, we got 15 ticket sales.
Wow.
Right. So it's like, we're sitting there, it's like a ticket comes in, a couple of days goes by, a ticket comes in, we're looking at the numbers, we're looking at the date, we're like, man, are we getting enough sales for this? And so it is like, that's probably the biggest concern doing an event like this is like, you want to make sure there's people there. You want to make sure when a speaker comes, they want to speak to someone, right? And so I would say that's probably the most stressful part of it.
Yeah.
So now that we're doing it, it's just great. Seeing the people like in the cafeteria, you know, it's like, all right, we got a full room here. It's great.
Yeah. No, it's a good size. Each talk I've been in, there's been a healthy amount of people out there. I think some sessions have had more people than Summit sessions at times, but Summit has, several more tracks. But speakers had a great time. I got to talk about these name tags because these are I go to a lot of conferences. These are the best name tags I've ever seen.
Well,
hands down.
Thank you.
How'd you come up with the idea? So for everyone out there, could you describe sort of what it looks like?
Well, I'll tell you how I got the idea, and then I'll also describe what it looks like.
Okay.
So when I was at Summit, Steve and Judd had the giant PowerShell logo chain. And I don't remember exactly when I came up with the idea, but I remembered he had that. And I was like, well, I got a 3D printer maybe like 5 months ago now.
Yeah.
And so I was like, what am I going to print on this thing? And I was like, oh yeah, Steve and Judd had that giant chain.
Yep.
And so the first idea was, let me see if I can print something up for him to wear around just to be a talking point. And I found on Thingiverse, I forget who created it, but there's a PowerShell logo out there that you can use.
Was it Matthew McGill? I think I saw it.
Matthew McGill.
Okay, yeah.
Yep. And so I grabbed that and I was like, looking at it, I was like, you know what? I could turn this into something. I think we could make a badge with this or something. And so basically it's that shrunk down. And then I'm just adding a square on the side, or a rectangle on the side where I fit the name. So It says, I was trying to come up with something that was clever for it. So it says $user.name, and then below it, it's got whoever's name it is, right? So it's personalized for every single person here. And the thing I like about it, which I don't know how many people appreciate it, is that it's embossed, right? Like that all sits on top of the logo.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is white. It's the PowerShell logo. It's white for several layers, because when you build this stuff, it's sliced. So it's white for several layers, and then it changes the filament to be blue for users, black for hosts or speakers, and then on top of that, it layers the prompt and it layers the actual text, and so all that stuff is raised up from the badge.
And I'm 1,000,000% taking this to most conferences I attend from here on,
I
whether
like
it's
that.
PowerShell Saturday or not.
A lot of people have said that, right? So it just says username and then the person, right? So it's got the PowerShell logo on it, but it's still just a good badge to wear around. So I'm
Great
excited
badge.
about that.
Yeah. So did you have to end up spending a lot of time? I know that you showed some of the misprints, and I saw like 3 versions of my name that there were some misprints with it. Was it a pretty, was it a labor of love?
It was. I enjoy kind of the tinkering with it. There was one print that I did. So when I set it up, I was doing one badge at a time, trying to get the settings just right. And when I started scaling up, that's when I started having problems.
Mm-hmm.
So like you can do some like smoothing on it. And I told everybody like my badge is the perfect badge. And it's not because I was just trying to be selfish with my badge. That's the one I did over and over again and get it right. And then I had to replace the nozzle on my printer. And so after I did that, I couldn't get it exactly the same again. And I had to do that when I scaled up because one of the badges didn't stick to the bed. And so it came loose and there was filament all over the place and it clogged up the nozzle.
Oh, right.
So anyway, in that scaling up process, I finally got to a point where I was printing a whole bed of them, like 20 at a time. And the way it's set up is you have these slot 1, 2, 3, and 4, you have your filament in there. And so I'd left a gray one in there, and then I had the blue and the black, and then white was the first one. So I set it to print. It's going all day long. I'm working remote, and it's going. It's doing the white layers. I go grab lunch. I go back upstairs to my desk, and I look over at the side. I got a webcam that shows it. I'm like, that looks like an off-white color that's going up there. What's going on with the filament? I go over there. The gray filament I had loaded in there started printing the color on there. And instead of being blue, which I had planned, of the 18 badges, I think that was 18 badges. 16 of them had already done the gray. And so I paused it. I flipped over to the blue. And I'm like, maybe it'll do another layer of the color and they'll all look fine.
Didn't work.
I got 2 badges that were mostly the right blue, and then all the rest of them were gray. And that's 8 hours of printing.
Gosh. A friend of mine, Mark Go, he's in the DMV area, big PowerSheller. He did some 3D printing for me because I don't have a 3D printer. There's stuff that I know the files were out there and I wanted. So I reached out and he offered to do some printing for me. And I tell you what, I'm very close to getting into 3D printing. After seeing these name tags, and I'm hot off the heels of that experience with him, I'm definitely in the market. So can you just give a shout out? What printer do you have and do you recommend it?
So I have a Bamboo Labs P1S. I would say, I think I would recommend it. I haven't tried all the other printers. The thing is, when I was first getting into printing, all I ever heard was people like, I'm doing this to my printer, I'm doing that to my printer. I'm like, what are you actually printing? And so the Bamboo, from everything I heard, was like a set it and forget it type thing. And I was like, if I want to print, I want to print. I don't want to spend time messing with the printer.
Right.
It seems to me, at least from all my research, that Bamboo's the way to go for that. And they have multiple tiers. The A1 that they have is actually pretty cheap. It's like, I think it's $2.99 or something like that. So you can get into it for not a whole lot of money. I'm not saying it's nothing, but they have quite a few price points there, and it's been a pretty good printer as far as you just let it go.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to checking that out. Gosh, I got to tell my wife, hey, babe, I got another hobby here. It'll be a hard sell, but we'll see if I can make it happen.
Well, I got the files. I was going to make it at least public to everybody here at the event. So if they want to print their own badges with something else on it, they can do that.
If I ever get a name change or put like a middle name, nickname, well, awesome, man.
Or a joke badge like Steven. So to wrap everything up, I did print the largest badge I could on my printer bed is 250 millimeters by 250 millimeters. So I scaled it up, but I did it diagonally so I can get it as wide as possible.
Yeah.
And that's Steven's Judd's badge, and it's all the way across his chest.
Yep. I talked to him about that a little bit last night on the bar session. Yeah, that thing was comical. I mean, it goes like armpit to armpit across his whole chest.
Yeah.
And I think he also had the other normal one underneath it.
Yeah.
So good
So
juxtaposition.
I printed that out first, just in case I couldn't make the big badge work. I printed his out. I was like, I'll have a badge for him no matter what.
Right. And then the tinkering went, well, awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for this weekend and for the work you've put in and for making sure that the RTPSUG runs smoothly and gets the videos on YouTube. Check out their YouTube. Check out rtpsug.com. And Kevin, people have enjoyed what you've said. Maybe they have a 3D printer question. Maybe they want to ask about when you filled a movie pilot in Micanopy. But where can they find you on the World Wide Web?
I would say I don't really have the social media presence that other people do. I kind of just do my own thing, but I'm at the RTPSUG meetings all the time. I'm in Discord. I'm in the PowerShell Discord channel. There's a couple of Kevins, and so every so often I get pinged, and another Kevin that someone's asking a database question to or something like that. I'm like, you got the wrong Kevin. But I think I'm just Kevin L.
Kevin L. Yep.
On the PowerShell Discord. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, and thank you to everyone out there. And until next time.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the PowerShell Podcast. The PowerShell Podcast is a PDQ production, making device management simple, secure, and pretty damn quick.